right, so today we're going to do something a bit different.
Okay.
We're talking about a camera that might seem a little bit like old news, but trust me, it's anything but.
All right.
We're talking about the Nikon D850.
Oh, cool.
Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't that like ancient in camera years? And yeah, it was released back in 2017.
Right.
But for experienced photographers like you listening to this, this deep dive might just reveal why this camera, paired with the right lenses, could still be a total game changer.
Interesting.
So,
yeah, the D50's longevity is really a testament to how ahead of the curve it was.
Exactly.
Back in the day.
And we've got some great sources to unpack here.
Okay.
Including a recent review from Amateur Photographer magazine, Nikon's own specs, and some in-depth lens reviews.
Cool.
We're going to focus on two lenses in particular, the 24-120mm f4 and that super compact 300mm f4.
Nice.
Think all-around versatility for the 24-120,
Yeah.
and then lightweight wildlife reach with the 300. So are you ready to uncover some hidden gems about this camera?
Absolutely. I think a lot of photographers have underestimated the D850,
Yeah.
especially with the rush to mirrorless these days.
Okay, so Amateur Photographer calls the D850, and I quote, potentially the high watermark of DSLR design.
Wow.
Even in 2024, they're still raving about it.
That's impressive.
What do you think makes this camera so special all these years later?
Well, if you look back at the camera landscape in 2017, professional photographers were often forced to choose.
Okay.
Like, okay, do I need a high-resolution camera for studio work, or do I need a fast camera for action?
Right.
The D850 was really designed to bridge that gap, offering both in a single body.
Okay. And looking at the specs from Nikon's PDFs, it's easy to see what they mean.
Right.
We're talking a 45.7 megapixel full-frame sensor.
Wow.
7 frames per second continuous shooting.
Okay.
Bumping up to 9 with a grip.
Nice.
And a 153-point autofocus system. I mean, even today, those are some serious specs.
They are. Nikon really engineered this camera to be a workhorse.
Yeah.
And that hybrid approach they took was a game changer for a lot of photographers.
Right.
No more lugging around two separate systems.
Think about what that means for you on location.
Yeah.
Less gear
Yeah.
to carry faster transitions between shots and the ability to capture incredible detail no matter what you're shooting.
Yeah. Streamlining your kit can make a huge difference in the field,
For sure.
especially for wildlife photographers who value mobility.
And speaking of versatility,
Yeah.
Amateur Photographer also mentions the D850's DX crop mode,
Okay.
which gives you a still very usable 19.4 megapixels.
Oh, wow.
It's almost like having a second camera body built in.
It is.
Yeah.
And for wildlife photographers, that crop mode effectively extends the reach of your lenses.
Right.
So your 300mm lens suddenly becomes a 450mm equivalent.
Wow.
That's a huge advantage when you need that extra reach.
Okay, let's dive into those lenses, starting with the 24-120mm f4. I was really surprised by the review we have for this lens.
Oh, yeah.
They call it surprisingly sharp,
Huh.
even comparing it to professional-grade glass.
Interesting.
What's interesting here is that while it doesn't have that constant f2.8 aperture that many pros look for,
Right.
Nikon clearly prioritized image quality in this lens. The review mentions 17 elements,
Okay.
including ED glass and nanocrystal coat,
Right.
which are designed to reduce aberrations and improve sharpness and contrast.
Makes sense.
And I think what really impressed me was that the reviewer actually replaced their 24-70mm f2.8 with this lens.
Wow, really?
They were willing to sacrifice that extra stop of light for the lighter weight and built-in VR.
Interesting.
Have you ever found yourself making those kinds of trade-offs when choosing gear?
All the time.
Right.
Especially when you're out in the field all day.
Right.
That weight difference can really add up.
Yeah.
And for many situations, having that image stabilization can be more valuable than a wider aperture.
Absolutely. But the review does mention some drawbacks, mainly some edge softness at 120mm and a bit of distortion and vignetting.
Right. Those are definitely things to be aware of, but keep in mind those are mostly correctable in post-processing.
Yeah, that's true.
You can always
a trade-off, right?
ways, yeah.
All right, let's move on to that intriguing 300mm f4.
Okay.
The review we have calls it revolutionary. And honestly, I can see why.
Yeah.
They managed to pack a 300mm prime into a remarkably compact and lightweight package.
It's really impressive.
Yeah.
The secret sauce here is the phase Fresnel element.
Okay.
It's a special type of lens element that corrects for things like chromatic aberration,
Right.
but with far fewer elements than a traditional lens design.
So it's like smaller and lighter.
Exactly. That's what allows them to keep the size and weight down without compromising on image quality.
So for our listener who's already familiar with longer lenses,
Yeah.
imagine the possibilities.
Right.
You could be out in the field, hand-holding a 300mm prime without a tripod collar,
Wow.
tracking wildlife. It's a game changer for mobility.
Absolutely. And that kind of freedom opens up all sorts of creative possibilities for wildlife photography.
Right.
You're no longer limited by a bulky setup.
The review raves about the sharpness and bokeh,
Mm-hmm.
and they even say the handling is stellar.
Yeah, it's a really nice lens to use.
But they did mention some concerns about potential quality control issues.
Oh, really?
Apparently, they tested 3 samples,
Yeah.
and all of them had some decentering problems.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always a risk with complex lens designs.
Right.
It's not uncommon, but it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Researching reviews from multiple sources and even considering an in-person inspection before purchasing
Right.
could save you some headaches down the road.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up our lens discussion,
Okay.
I want to touch on something the review highlighted about shooting in low light.
Okay.
They were really impressed with how both of these lenses perform on the D850, even when the light starts to fade.
Well, the D850 is known for its excellent low-light performance.
Right.
That 45.7 megapixel sensor might seem like it would be a noise magnet,
Yeah.
but Nikon really did an incredible job with the sensor design and noise reduction algorithms.
So even if our listener is pushing the ISO up to get a shot with these lenses,
Right.
they can be confident that the D850 will deliver clean, usable images.
Absolutely.
That's huge, especially for wildlife photography,
Yeah.
where you're often shooting in challenging lighting conditions.
Exactly. And having that confidence in your gear allows you to focus on the creative side of things rather than worrying about technical limitations.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the D850 itself.
Okay.
Amateur photographer calls it a classic in the making and praises its performance across the board.
It's a fantastic camera.
They even go so far as to say it's considered by many to be the best DSLR Nikon ever released.
Wow. That's high praise.
That's some serious praise.
Yeah.
And well-deserved, I'd say.
I think so.
The D850 delivers stunning image quality, and that's partly thanks to its incredible dynamic range.
Right.
For experienced photographers, this is a huge deal.
It is.
You have so much flexibility in post-processing to pull detail out of shadows and highlights,
Exactly.
allowing for some truly creative edits.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do with those raw files.
They were particularly impressed with the raw files,
Yeah.
saying they're practically noise-free up to ISO 800.
Really?
That's incredible,
Yeah.
especially considering the resolution we're talking about.
That's impressive.
It speaks to the quality of the sensor and Nikon's image processing capabilities.
They really push the boundaries with the D850.
Of course, it's a DSLR, so it's not exactly known for being small and light.
Right.
Did they mention anything about the handling experience?
They did. They described the camera as having a satisfying heft to it, but not in a way that feels cumbersome. The grip is deep and comfortable, and the button layout is intuitive.
Right.
Even for photographers with smaller hands, it's easy to get a solid grip and access all the controls.
So it's not too big.
Not at all.
They specifically called out the tilting touchscreen as a welcome addition.
Oh, yeah.
Finally, a high-resolution Nikon DSLR with a screen that moves.
It's about time.
Now, something that caught my eye was that the D850 doesn't have a built-in pop-up flash.
Oh, really?
That seemed a bit odd for a camera of this caliber.
Yeah, I would have expected that.
Any insights into that decision?
It seems like Nikon opted to prioritize weather sealing and durability.
Okay.
Pop-up flashes are often a weak point when it comes to weather resistance.
That's true.
It's a feature that's likely more important to the professional photographers who are the target audience for this camera.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine most pros are using external flashes anyway.
Exactly. Plus, the D850 still has the ability to control external flashes wirelessly.
Right.
You're not losing any functionality.
Let's talk about a feature that really caught my attention, silent shooting.
Okay.
Amateur photographer raved about the D850's silent shooting capabilities, which might seem counterintuitive for a DSLR.
Right. You don't typically associate DSLRs with silent shooting.
Yeah.
But the D850 actually has a fully electronic shutter
Oh, wow.
that can be used in live view mode.
Okay.
This eliminates the mirror slap, allowing for completely silent operation.
So our listener could be at a wedding or out in nature photographing wildlife
Yeah.
and capture those candid moments Without any distracting noise.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool for discrete photography.
But wouldn't that affect the autofocus?
Yeah.
Doesn't the D850 rely on phase detection autofocus?
Yeah.
Which requires the mirror to move?
For viewfinder shooting, yes.
Okay.
But in live view mode, the D850 switches to contrast detection autofocus, which works without the mirror.
So you're saying it has two autofocus systems, essentially?
That's right.
One for traditional shooting and one for live view and silent shooting.
It's the best of both worlds.
Okay, this is making me rethink everything I thought I knew about DSLRs.
Yeah, it's a really versatile camera.
And we haven't even touched on video yet.
Correct.
Amateur photographer mentions 4K video capabilities, but doesn't go into much detail.
Well, it's important to remember that the D850 is primarily designed for stills photography.
Right.
But the video features are definitely not an afterthought.
Oh.
I get 4K recording at 30 frames per second, which is perfectly adequate for many projects.
All right.
And you have helpful tools like focus peaking and zebra patterns.
And that tilting touchscreen would be super handy for framing up video shots, especially at low angles.
Absolutely. And having both a microphone and headphone jack is essential for any serious video work.
So maybe not a dedicated video camera.
Right.
But certainly capable of handling some video needs.
Exactly. If you need to capture a quick click, the D850 won't let you down.
Okay, so welcome back.
Yeah.
We're diving back into the world of the Nikon D850.
All right.
A camera that seems to defy time before we were exploring its video capabilities and how it really excels as a hybrid shooter.
Yeah, a real all-rounder.
But amateur photographer didn't stop there. They also highlighted its in-camera time-lapse feature.
Oh, cool.
It's a fantastic feature for landscape and nature photographers.
Right.
You can create stunning 4K time-lapses right in the camera with easy-to-use controls for setting the interval and duration.
So you don't need any external software.
No, you don't.
That's nice.
And I love that they mentioned how the D850 actually shows you how much space the time-lapse will take up on your memory card, as well as the estimated length of the final video.
That's handy.
No more guesswork.
Right. You can plan your shots better.
Exactly.
It's those thoughtful details that can make a big difference in the field.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's circle back to image quality for a moment.
Right.
We keep talking about this 45.7 megapixel sensor.
Yeah, it's a beast.
Well, amateur photographer put it through its paces.
Okay.
And unsurprisingly, the results are incredible.
I bet.
They were blown away by the level of detail, even at higher ISOs.
So it's not just about the resolution then? They can actually handle the noise.
What impressed me was that they found ISO 6400 to be perfectly usable.
Wow.
And even ISO 12800 produced decent results with some noise reduction in post.
That's pretty remarkable for a camera with this much resolution.
It is.
Yeah.
They even said the RAW files are virtually noise-free up to ISO 800.
That's crazy.
I mean, that's a testament to the quality of the sensor and Nikon's image processing.
It really is. Nikon knows what they're doing.
So we've talked about the D850's specs, its performance, and those two fantastic lenses, the 24-120 millimeter for versatility, and the incredibly compact 300 millimeters for wildlife.
Right.
What stands out to you most about this camera?
Honestly, it's the D850 staying power that impresses me the most. In a world where camera technology evolves so rapidly, the fact that the D850 remains a relevant and capable tool even 7 years after its release is incredible. It's a workhorse that can handle a huge range of photographic situations.
I totally agree. It's a camera that was built to last.
Yeah, it's a tank.
And it challenges the assumption that you always need the newest gear to create great images.
Exactly. The D850 proves that a well-designed camera with a solid feature set can remain relevant for years.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener?
Yeah.
Well, here's a thought to ponder.
Okay.
The D850 has been on the market for a while now, which means there are some fantastic deals to be found on the used market.
That's a great point. You could potentially snag a professional-grade camera at a fraction of the cost of a brand new model.
Of course, with any used gear, it's crucial to do your homework.
Always.
Check the shutter count, inspect the camera carefully, and maybe even have it professionally checked out.
Definitely. A little due diligence goes a long way when buying used equipment.
Now, you might be thinking,
okay,
the D850 is great, but why not just go for a newer mirrorless camera?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And that's a valid question. Mirrorless cameras do offer some advantages.
Right.
Like lighter weight, faster shooting speeds, and more advanced video features.
But they also come with a higher price tag.
Yeah, for sure.
And for some photographers, the handling and feel of a DSLR are simply irreplaceable.
Yeah, I can see that. It ultimately boils down to your individual needs and preferences.
Exactly. There's no right or wrong answer.
And we hope that this deep dive has equipped you with the knowledge to make an informed decision.
That's what we're here for.
The world of photography is vast and exciting.
It really is.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our exploration of the Nikon D850.
Right?
We encourage you to do your own research and see if this camera might be the perfect fit for your creative journey.
Have fun out there.
Thanks for joining us on the